All right, so today we are going to be looking at The Power of Now.
By Eckhart Tolle.
Eckhart Tolle, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and this is a book that I think, I feel like everyone I know has mentioned at some point or another.
It's kind of like the self-help
Yeah.
Bible in a way.
Yeah, it's like one of those books that's always like on somebody's bedside table. Or,
Right.
Or like, oh, you got to read this book. It like changed my life.
Right.
And we're going to like really break it down. And I think that we have some excerpts from it. We have a really detailed summary.
Yeah.
So think of this as like your cheat sheet to like all of the big ideas.
Right. And some of them are really like radical. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
He's really advocating for finding happiness now, not like chasing it
Yeah.
in the future or dwelling on the past.
Well, and I think that that's something that, at least for me, like I struggle with because, I find myself often, either sort of reliving past mistakes or like worrying about things that like I have no control over in the future.
Right.
And it's like, how do you stop doing that?
Yeah. And that's like a theme throughout the book, is that our minds are like constantly taking us away from the now.
Yeah.
And so he's really saying, the only reality that we have is this moment.
Okay, but like, how do you, can you just tell your mind to be quiet? Like, how does that work?
Well, it starts with awareness. It's like noticing when you're not in the present moment.
Okay.
And he has this quote, "You are not your mind."
You are not your mind. Wow. I'm going to have to like sit with that one for a second.
It's powerful.
Yeah. So if I'm not my mind, like what am I?
Yeah, he talks a lot about that. And he basically says that you are the awareness. Like the awareness that can even observe your thoughts.
Okay.
So think of it this way. Have you ever like been doing something that you just love?
Uh-huh.
Like maybe like a hobby, or you get really into a project at work.
Yeah.
And you're so focused on what you're doing that like all of a sudden like hours have passed.
Totally, yeah.
And it's like time flew by.
Yeah.
You were so present
Yeah.
that your mind actually quieted down.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a taste of what he's talking about.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I know when I'm like playing music or even like listening to music, like if I'm really like into it, it's like everything else just kind of goes away.
Right.
So is that what he's talking about, like with the power of now?
Yeah, he's saying that we can access that state more often.
Got it.
And that's where real joy and fulfillment can be found.
Okay. But what about like, all the stuff that we bring with us? Like the baggage and like, past regrets or hurts or, things that are like holding us back.
Well, that's where he introduces this idea called the pain body.
The pain body.
Yeah.
Okay, now that sounds kind of scary.
It sounds a little intimidating.
Yeah.
But it's actually really insightful.
All right, well, let's unpack that a little bit. So the pain body, like what is that exactly?
It's like all of the emotional pain that you've experienced in your life. Like think about all of the hurts.
Yeah.
The traumas, the disappointments.
Oh.
It's like it creates this energetic like weight that we carry around with us.
And so how does that like manifest in our everyday lives?
Well, he says that it can unconsciously influence our thoughts or feelings or our reactions.
So it's like almost like a shadow self or something.
Yeah, it's like it can sabotage our happiness.
Can you give like a specific example?
Yeah, so let's say you're at work
and
a colleague criticizes a presentation that you gave.
Yeah.
And you immediately feel defensive and angry.
Right, like you want to lash out.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, some of that might be a natural response.
Yeah.
But he's saying that the intensity of that reaction could be coming from your pain body. Like maybe it triggered.
Oh, a memory.
So it's like you're not actually reacting to what's happening right now.
Right.
You're reacting to all of this like past stuff.
Exactly.
That's coming up for you.
It's like this reservoir.
That makes a lot of sense.
Of unresolved emotional pain.
Wow. Okay. So that's the pain body. And then also we have this like mind that's constantly, like taking us out of the present moment. So how do we deal with that?
Well, this is where acceptance comes in.
Okay. Acceptance. Isn't that just like giving up though?
It's not about giving up or like resigning yourself to misery.
Right. Okay.
It's about acknowledging what is.
Okay.
Without judgment.
It's like you're not fighting it.
Right.
You're just like, okay, this is what's happening.
Exactly. And he says that when we resist what is, we actually create suffering.
Okay.
It's that pushing against reality.
Got it.
That causes pain.
Okay. So can you give an example of like what that looks like?
Let's go back to that example with your colleague.
Instead of immediately reacting,
you
just take a breath and you acknowledge how you're feeling.
Okay.
Okay, I'm feeling hurt.
Yeah.
I'm feeling angry.
Right.
This is my pain body.
Right.
Just that recognition can create some space.
So you're not suppressing it,
Right.
but you're also not letting it take over.
Exactly.
You're just observing it.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So acceptance isn't about weakness. It's about, like, taking control almost.
It's about getting back in the driver's seat.
I like that. Okay. So acceptance. And then he also talks about detaching from the ego, right?
Yes.
So what is that all about?
So the ego is that part of us
Okay.
that identifies with all of the external things,
Okay.
like our possessions,
Yeah.
our
Our
achievement,
jobs, our title.
our roles, all of that.
Yeah.
And it's constantly comparing,
Yeah.
judging,
Okay.
seeking validation.
Yeah, it's like never satisfied.
Right. It's always focused on what's missing. Yeah, it's like that voice in your head that's like, you're not good enough or you don't have enough.
It thrives on that lack.
Yeah. So how do we detach from the ego?
It's not necessarily about getting rid of the ego.
No.
He says it's more about becoming aware of it and then choosing to identify with something deeper.
Okay.
Our true self.
So like, what is that?
He says our true self is our essence.
Okay.
It's like who we are beyond
Yeah.
all of those labels, the identifications.
So it's like we have this like deeper self that's always there.
Yes.
But we get so caught up in the ego.
And the noise of that.
Yeah. Okay. So how do we connect with that true self?
Well, being present
Okay.
helps us to quiet the mind,
Okay.
to connect with that stillness.
So how do we actually do that? Like, what are some things we can do to like be more present and less ego driven?
He talks about conscious breathing.
Okay.
Just taking a few moments to like really focus on your breath.
Yeah.
Noticing the sensations of the breath coming in and out.
Okay. I mean, that sounds super simple.
It is.
Okay.
It's powerful.
So like if you find yourself getting caught up in your thoughts, you can just like take a minute and
Come back to your breath.
yeah.
It's like a reset button.
Oh, I like that. Okay. So conscious breathing. What else?
Engaging your senses.
Okay.
Like really paying attention to the sights,
Mm-hmm.
the sounds, the smells.
Okay.
Like really savoring.
So it's like taking yourself off of autopilot
Yes.
and like really being present with like whatever you're doing.
Exactly.
Like this is like the most mundane thing.
Yeah, like instead of just like rushing through your morning routine,
Right.
really take a moment to appreciate your cup of coffee.
Okay, so it's like mindfulness, but like in your everyday life.
Right. It's bringing that mindfulness
Okay.
into everything you do.
All right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, this is starting to make a lot of sense, but it also seems like it takes a lot of effort
It's
to break free from these like old patterns,
Mm-hmm.
you know, of thinking and reacting. Is there anything else that we can do?
Well, he also talks about surrender.
Okay, surrender. Now that's a loaded word. Okay, so surrender. I mean, what does that even mean in this context?
It's not about giving up or like waving a white flag.
Right.
It's more about like letting go
What?
of the need to control everything.
Okay.
You know, like have you ever noticed how much energy we waste
Oh, yeah.
fighting against things that we can't control?
Totally. Like traffic
Yeah.
or like the weather
Right.
or like, you know, just like a coworker that's like driving you crazy.
Yeah. He says that's the ego
Okay.
trying to like maintain control
Yeah.
and resist the natural flow of life.
Yeah.
But when we surrender,
Uh-huh.
we find peace.
Okay, but doesn't that mean that we can't like set goals or
No, it's not about that.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that like
Yeah.
we don't always know what's best.
Okay.
You know, like you might have a plan for your life
Mhm.
and then something totally unexpected happens.
Yeah.
That leads you in a completely different direction.
That's happened to me a lot, actually.
Yeah.
And sometimes it ends up being like way better.
Right. And that's the power of surrender.
Okay.
Like trusting that there's a bigger plan.
Okay, so it's not about being passive, it's about
It's about trusting
trusting. Yeah.
the intelligence of life.
Yeah, okay. So it's like saying, okay, universe, I trust you.
Yeah. Like I trust that even though I don't understand what's happening right now, it's all going to work out.
All right. I can get behind that.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we actually like practice surrender?
Just notice when you're resisting something.
Okay.
Like notice when you're feeling that tension,
Yeah.
that tightness.
Okay.
And instead of fighting against it,
Mm-hmm.
just soften into it.
Okay.
Allow it to be there.
So like if I'm like really stressed out about something at work,
Yeah.
it's like instead of freaking out, just be like, okay, I'm stressed out. This is happening.
Yeah, just acknowledge it
Okay.
and then choose to accept it instead of resisting it.
All right. So it's about like shifting your perspective.
It's a shift in energy. It's
Yeah.
like instead of wasting energy on resisting,
Right.
you're choosing to accept, and then you can move forward from there.
Like he says in the book, stress is caused by being here,
Right.
but wanting to be there.
Right.
It's like we're never where we're supposed to be.
We're always thinking about the next thing or
Yeah.
dwelling on the past.
And we miss out on like what's right in front of us.
Exactly.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too.
And I think that, it's given us a lot to think about.
Yeah, I think The Power of Now is like a book you can come back to again and again.
Yeah,
And each time you'll get something new out of it.
that's awesome. Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to ponder.
Yeah.
So what's like one final thought that you want to leave them with?
What if you could create a space of stillness
Okay.
within yourself,
Yeah.
even amidst the chaos of
Mhm.
daily life? Like, what might you discover there?
That's a good question.
And the power to access that space
Yeah.
is always available to you
Right here, right now.
right now.
Awesome. All right.
Oh.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive on the power of now. Hopefully, we've given you some things to think about and some tools to help you be more present in your everyday life. And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.